Hello and welcome to another episode of the e-commerce coffee break. Today I want to talk about subscription business and to see if your e-commerce business actually qualifies for that. Having a subscription business obviously increases your customer lifetime value massively, and it might be a good option for businesses, for e-commerce stores that do not know yet that they might qualify for that. So therefore, my guest on the show today is Evan Padgett. Evan Padgett is the CEO of the e-commerce marketing firm Stealth Venture Labs. That stands stealthventurelabs.com. He is in e-commerce and subscription for the last 20 years, so he has a vast area of experience in this field. He works with brands like Crocs, HelloFresh, and Factor 75. When he's not working, he usually spends his time with his children, plays video games, and supports his favorite American football game, the Denver Broncos. So I'd like to welcome Evan. Hi, how are you today?
Great, Klaus. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Evan, give me a bit of a background. Obviously, I have a long career in e-commerce. What brought you to subscription-based?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I think I just landed in subscription from the get-go. First started in the early days of the internet marketing game in the early 2000s with a lot of negative option continuity, so the old free trial leading to a subscription type business. And then over time, sophistication of subscriptions grew. The types of products that would become subscription grew. From there, I landed in women's fashion, more health and wellness products, grocery with a company called Thrive Market as their chief marketing officer. And now working with my business partner here at Stealth, we're not going out there just to only try to service subscription commerce companies, but subscription commerce is a very rapidly growing vertical in the broader e-commerce space, and they just sort of gravitate towards us. So I would say that it was less of an interest and more of just where I landed, and fortunate to stick around in this industry long enough to see it go from something a little bit more simple to the world that we're in now, where subscription and recurring revenue models are everywhere.
No, makes total sense. So how does a merchant or e-commerce business owner know that his business might be a good fit for a subscription model?
Yeah, so this is kind of a question I get a lot, is like, how do you create a subscription and recurring revenue model in a business? And there's a couple ways. One, I do think that almost every type of business out there, every type of consumer product or consumer technology even, can have a subscription, or even just better, you'll hear me interchange, a lot of recurring revenue model assigned to it. That makes sense. And the way it makes sense is it's got to do a few things. It's got to provide a value to the customer by relieving a pain of theirs. For example, like, hey, you don't like going to the grocery store, you could get your groceries or you get meals at home delivered. You happen to like a certain type of coffee or something like that, boom, you can have that delivered to your house. You don't like to go to the clothing store, shoe store to try things on, create something that's really frictionless there for people to build their wardrobe out and have a sense of style. So you just have to look at what part of your business can really drive a value for consumers, and then start creating a model that engages a relationship with them. Because it's not, subscription should not just be stuff in a box. I mean, some are doing this, and they do it well, but stuff in a box sent to you every month or every other month. And that's great. That's sort of like maybe subscription 1.2, 1.5, not necessarily subscription 1.0, but subscription 2.0, if I look at this now, is like, how do you reduce the gravity in people's lives by giving them a product or service that becomes a part of their life, and you establish a true and authentic relationship from a business to the consumer. And the last thing I'll say about that is that it could be related to expedited or exceptional, sort of concierge services. It could be, replenishment or plans that make sure that if you ever need this product or a replacement one, we're going to get it to you quickly. And it doesn't have to be your entire product. Or if you have a consumable product, like if you have a product that people eat, drink, use, consume, and it goes away and it needs to be replenished, you have a possible subscription product there. And you need to think about a way to build a model around it.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Specifically, as I said, consumable products, obviously the best fit for a subscription business. What other kind of criteria are out there to find out if you can be successful with subscription or not?
So there's certain things a subscription model's got to have, and a certain kind of mentality you got to have building a subscription model, which is the things you got to have are really great unit economics. So you can't, and if you're trying to do acquisition marketing and brand awareness, you need to save part of your revenue for that. So if you have a product that has, sort of 50% or better gross profit margins delivered to the door for consumer packaged good, you likely have ways to create a marketing campaign around that. You need a way to create an actual model to project the business. So when you have good unit economics, most subscription companies, the secret is they don't make money on their first order. You don't necessarily land bottom dollars on that first order. It's the subscription is what pays and generates profit over time. Knowing that you have to tie up working capital is important. And that mentality where people think, hey, I bought this thing for $1. I'm going to sell it to you right now for $2. Yeah, I'm going to get my money. That is not exactly how subscription works. Like subscription is, I'm going to buy this for $1. I'm going to sell you the first one for about $1. And then, then the next one you buy, I'm going to make another $1. And the next one leads to higher LTVs. But you have to be able to create a product that can survive long tail. So you need to have something like that, in preparation. There's also supply chain. There's things about subscription is you are always going to have a deeper relationship with the customer. That creates a commitment with customer service, the quality of your service. People get used to every meal at home company is a great example. We've worked with a ton of them. People are like, I get my box every Wednesday. If that box shows up on Thursday because you have a supply chain issue, people might not eat for a day, and not just one day, or they have to go do something like, I got to go order fast food or something. Like, that's going to make them mad, and they might cancel you just because of that. So you have a promise as a company you have to make, but if you can fulfill all that, and you have the working capital, and you have the courage to stand through the marketing engine being a little bit different than normal, those are the ingredients you need to actually sort of have a subscription product. So good economics, you need to have an audience. You need a lot of the same things you need for e-commerce. The only difference is you need the ability to make sure that you can keep selling a version of your product or your service throughout the upcoming years where it becomes a part of their lives.
No, makes perfect sense. And I think Evan is already gave a good idea of there is a lot of moving parts there. So it's not as easy as one might think. It's just putting an app to your store and then you're in a subscription model.
Subscribe and save is like one of those things I hate. Like I am not like that's the baby step into subscription. And a lot of brands are like, okay, I'm going to try subscription. I'm going to put subscribe and save on the site. That is the laziest approach to try, and it might give you some directional data, but I see brands are like, I put a subscribe and save on there and nobody took it. It's kind of weird. I'm like, that's not how you build a product. Like, you have to be thinking about the entire customer journey, and you have to put yourself in their shoes. And subscribe and save just makes people be like, you're telling me if I commit to buying this more, you're going to take 10% off. Like, that's not appealing to me. I want the flexibility. But you pivot them into, hey, when you're a subscriber, you get expedited shipping, you get free gifts every third order, you get special releases only for members. All of a sudden, those things don't cost you more, but the customer psychology starts clicking like, oh, I want to be part of this club. I want to be part of an exclusive member of this. That means I love their product and I see it before other people do. You have to like tease people with something, not just do subscribe and save, and at least not base your entire decision off subscribe and save.
Yeah, good point there. So what would be your recommendation for somebody who runs a Shopify or WooCommerce store to implement a more complex and a system that adds more value than just a 10% off to the store? What would be the best way to start this process?
Yeah, I think one, just sort of listening to your customers. So the customers you do have, if you're transitioning or trying to build out part of your business to become subscription, talk to your customers. They're going to tell you what they like about your product, how frequently they need it, what other parts of, like, what a tangential offering could look like. Depending, there's a lot of variations there because of the types of business anyone could have. But like, let's just say you're a consumer packaged coffee company, and you find out that oh, well, the average customer buys 2 bags every month. Some people buy 2 bags every 2 months. Some people buy 3 bags every 1 month, depending on your coffee consumption. But then you sort of look at that, you do the data, you do an analysis, say, okay, what are people purchasing when they are repurchasing? And then you say, okay, well, hey, I'm going to create a kind of one size fits all coffee flexible membership. That is, you get 2 bags every month, skip a month if you need to, get an extra one if you need to, text us and we'll ship you another one. And then, call it a coffee membership. And with that, maybe you get a personalized mug or something like that. Just like, think about how you can add more value than just a discount. A subscription cannot be just a discount. It's got to be value that is intangible, that is emotional, that is, you are asking somebody to add a regular bill to their finances, not just be able to go into a store or go into your digital store and slap a card down whenever they feel like it to get what they want. So you have to look at your business that way and say, oh, my customers, like, my best customers, they purchase 2 bags every single month. You could convert them into a subscription, not just them, but probably 15 or 20% of your other customers that maybe buy 2 bags every 45 days. They'll do that. Like, so it's data that you can get. It's actually talking to your customers. And it's also using a bit of your own instinct on like, what would I do in the customer seat in order to drive convenience for them and drive to make their lives better, drive to surprise and delight them every time they see your box show up on their doorstep. It puts a smile on their face for them to be like, all right, like, I'm excited to open this up. I'm excited. I'm glad I needed this. I forgot that I'm out of coffee right in time. Nothing like you can do that. Boom, you have an awesome subscription, because subscribers, more so than e-commerce, very, very quantifiable data. They also talk about you. They talk about you a ton. When people are on a subscription that gives them less gravity in their lives because they don't have to do something, they are telling their friends, and the K factor on subscription is much higher than e-commerce, and because of the depth of that relationship.
So if I understand you right, having a subscription business is more about community building, about VIP, white glove service, really building something that has a lot of communication involved and bringing people back to your store. And it's not just a price-based decision to get a regular delivery every 4 weeks or so. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Especially if you're transitioning as an e-commerce store already. Yes. If you're thinking about coming to market with an e-commerce store or a subscription commerce product, the other frame of thought is sort of, instead of, because you don't have the e-commerce data to back up what you're already doing. If you're like, I want to create an e-commerce business, it's a lot of those same steps, but then looking at like, what are the things that, would make that people want to, especially consumables, easiest place to start. What are the things that people can't live without? Or when they don't have it, it's a serious situation. One of the earliest sort of more popular subscriptions that come to mind are things like diapers and diapers.com, before they got bought by Amazon and stuff like that. I have 3 kids, and if ever there was a moment I didn't have a diaper in the house, that's a whole situation. If you don't have food and you're relying on that food, that's a whole situation. And so you could start looking at that in your own life or your friend's life, and just kind of like the research of your peers of like, man, I really wish I had this service that would come and do my laundry. Like, that's a premium, sort of exceptional service, but tons of those services, subscription services for laundry placement and cleaning and redelivering, that reduces gravity on people. And that's a premium service, but that's an awesome service for the people that can afford it and want to do it. So it's the same process. If you already have a business, look at the data, talk to your customers. If you're thinking about building a business, look at what would just make people's lives easier. And that is half the battle. And then from there, you build a relationship with them and a brand that stands for something.
Mm-hmm. I think in the subscription business, the churn rate is your biggest enemy. Obviously, you want to keep people as long as possible in the subscription. Now, if everything is database now today, what kind of KPIs are you looking into measure and forecast your churn rate or your business overall?
Yeah, so churn is less the enemy. I think of it more of the reality. Subscriptions, people have to leave subscriptions for reasons, right? You're never going to retain 100% of who you bring in. That is the reality of subscription. Purchase, right? So like you have churn in an e-commerce store. It's just not as much of a KPI because you're looking at recency and frequency, et cetera. So when you're monitoring monitoring a subscription business, you're looking at, a churn waterfall that basically has to look at your customer cohorts by typically a month that you get them, how they are falling off, and model against that and actually identify if there's changes to that model. So industry standards for like a monthly subscription, your first month, you tend to lose the biggest. Your first cohort month is going to be your biggest drop, meaning if I bought in April, the biggest cancellations are going to happen between April and the end of May. And you're talking about a typical somewhere between 15 and 25% of your first customers will churn for reasons. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe it's not up to their expectations. Maybe they just don't want to be on subscription. That's real. But then from there, you see marketed drops from usually about 15 to 25% of your first cohort month. From there, it usually drops down to about 10%. And then by that point, maybe you've lost 25 to 35% of your aggregate customers. And then from there, you're talking usually about a 3 to 5% month over month, not from the original cohort, but a month over month sort of drop. Because if people stick around for 3 months, they're likely to stick around for quite a while. The churn really drops off after that. But you come out with the modeling and the data aspect of it. You got to come out with an idea of what this could be. Everything looks good when it's on a spreadsheet, but the realities will tell you how you need to update that. And then you monitor that forever. So when it comes to churn, you got to be looking at any variation, say plus or minus 5% of variation on that. You got to be like, okay, my churn is usually 20%. It's up to 30%. Okay, what's wrong? Is it my customer service? Did I have a really bad product in there? Did it break in shipping? Who knows, right? You got to investigate that. So that's one thing. Your LTV, obviously, that modeling all leads the aspect of churn, the aspect of your revenue over time. This obviously leads you to an LTV. So say you have a $500 LTV, great subscription product at 50% margins. That means you're going to make $250 in gross profit before advertising in this case. So then you start thinking, okay, what can I pay to get that customer? Well, I could pay $100 to get that customer, still leaving $150 to go down between employees, between everything, all the way down to profit, right? So building a model will tell you where to start. Adjusting that model over time will tell you where you need to focus. And then in the end of the day, you need to right the ship and fix problems where they're cropping up. If it's churn, if it's your LTV, if it's people not upselling, people skipping too much, you have problems. It takes a little bit more to manage, but if you work it against a good subscription pro forma model, you'll be in great shape.
Mm-hmm. So I already see running a profitable subscription e-commerce business is not as easy as it might think in the first place. How do you help your customers, your clients at stealthventure.labs.com getting into it?
So we look at that a few different ways. One, it certainly takes a little bit of time to get going, and your growth, the ability to grow a subscription business is capital intensive. Not to say you can't bootstrap it and sort of self-fund it, but because of the delay of revenue collection, you really do end up with, like, if you're trying to increase your media budget, you're not generating a lot of profit. You operate in the red for a period of time. Now, the beauty of a subscription product is at any given point, if you have to reduce costs, you still have downstream revenue coming in. So you can kind of control your margins within reason and your overall profitability at any given point in time. You slow down growth, increase profit. And that's kind of a cycle you kind of go up and down on over time. So when we're looking and telling people, hey, you want to try to get in subscription, one, look at their budget, obviously, and do really accurate forecasting, sort of best case, worst case, medium case scenarios of what this could look like. Sort of two is understand your marketing materials. Like, what is, if you're trying to find product market fit, that's a big question. Like what you think people are going to like about your product is usually not, when you're coming to market, it's not the reality. So you have to be ready to test. You have to be ready to come out and be, to a certain degree, a little bit disappointed about the results at the beginning, because everybody wants to hit the go button on their advertising and be like, boom, ultra profitable customers by the thousands. The reality is you hit that, you spend $500, you don't get a customer, you start to get a little bead of sweat coming down your brow. You spend another $500. You get your first customer. You're like, all right, but I need to get customers at $50. So you're like, I got a long way to go. But you have to have the stomach to be able to handle that financially, and both just like not making rash decisions. And then have fun with the creative, a whole different water cooler conversation here. Coffee break is so important now because of the way that marketing is, the way that attribution is. So the buying audience wants to be entertained, assuming you're selling stuff on the paid social engines and everything like that. People want to be entertained. People want to have great creative. They want to have a fun brand that they're being a part of and a fun user experience or customer experience. So you have to make sure that that exists and that shines through on your site and your creative. So don't get down on yourselves, but be ready and willing to say, this is an investment. Part of the investment is making this model stick, growing and adapting to it, and not packing in your bags and saying, well, this doesn't work after you spend a few $1,000s and you don't get what you want.
No, 100% agree with you. I've been doing businesses for more than 20 years now, and it always takes longer than you calculate.
I know, right? I wish I could hit the button and just be like, boom, money, but nope.
Never happening. You calculate 6 months, it takes a year. You calculate a year, it takes 1.5 years.
Patience. Have patience.
Exactly. A lot of good stuff in there, Evan. Where can people find more about you?
So you can find us on stealthventurelabs.com. We have a forum on there. You can submit if you want to talk with any of us. You can also find me, Evan, at stealthventurelabs.com, all just one word. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there as well. I just love talking shop about this industry and how it's changing. And right now, I think that there's as a marketer, I think that there's a shift going on with how direct-to-consumer marketing is changing. And I love just sort of sharing thoughts with people to try to figure out what is going to be the next evolution of direct-to-consumer marketing, because with the changes in privacy and the ability to target prospective customers, I love to hear what's working. I love to hear about tactics and share sort of what we're seeing as well. So this is I've spent more than half my life now in this industry, so I love talking about it and seeing how it changes.
Yeah. I think it gave a good overview that a subscription-based e-commerce business is a good idea, but it needs to be done the right way. And best way to learn this is obviously to talk to someone who has done that for a long time, like you. I will put the links in the show notes so people can reach you directly with one click. And like to thank you for your time. I think it was very insightful. And
thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.